I would like to invite on stage with a round of applause Mr. Suhrid Shah, CEO of Vendex. Suhrid Shah, CEO of Mavenvista Technologies Private Limited, is a serial entrepreneur, passionate leader, and a committed practitioner. He carries with himself experience of over 35 years across companies in the manufacturing, marketing, and technology verticals. This real-life experience has assisted him to have a natural understanding of business needs and the user perspective to create easily adaptable solutions leveraging technology to achieve business objectives. Mr. Shah is a voracious learner and strongly believes in passionately expanding his network consistently to satisfy his hunger for knowledge and seek new ideas. His close associates comprise of acknowledged management gurus, highly experienced senior supply chain professionals, proficient technologists of different expertise, and many others who can consistently enrich his understanding of different organizational functions and evolving needs of the customers. Can we hear a big round of applause for Mr. Shah?
Good afternoon, everybody. I think when we talk about the future of the procurement, I think it will be important to us to understand what is the vital importance of the procurement as a function. So when I look at typical manufacturing companies, they spend close to about 45% to 85% of their revenue as a procurement spend. If we look at their bottom line, which is anywhere between 7 to 20%, which means that every percentage saving what they generate, it adds almost 5 to 10% to the bottom line. Now, if you look at this equation in perspective of increasing your market share, increasing your production capabilities, the level of investments which are needed, as well as the level of uncertainties which you need to encounter, because nobody is assured of any kind of a market share for sure. But here, you are talking about improvement of the bottom line through optimization of the procurement process, which is an absolute certainty. When we look at the evolving challenges which are coming up in this function, the market situation is getting more and more dynamic. So your response capabilities are required to be far agile than what it is today. It's getting more and more demanding. So you have to constantly innovate. Now, if you look at these two areas, efficiency of every area of the procurement, every critical area of the procurement, you need to kind of target at the top in order to give a competitive edge to your organization. So when we look at what factors which we look at the efficiency, vendor discovery, there are a lot of innovations which are happening in the market. You need to know what's happening in the product ecosystem which you're dealing with. You have to identify those vendors, you need to board those vendors. When you're looking at a speed, the risk factor also goes up significantly with the speed of operations. So you need to mitigate geopolitical risk, you need to mitigate suppliers risk, you need to mitigate quality risk, various other risk factors, knowledge loss. When we talk about requirement management, when it comes out to be a huge pace at which you're required to manage changes in the demand as well as changes in the requirement, that is another challenge, which is what is something is required to handle efficiently. Negotiation, which is happening every day in the procurement guy's life. And negotiation is more powerful when you have more powerful information base. And you need to see that those information base is delivered to you on a real-time basis in order to be more effective in the negotiations. Let's look at once you have finalized the contract, it is an entire contract management. You require a high level of efficiency in this function in order to see that the contracts are effectively managed and fulfilled. Well, without your supplier relationship, I don't think any of this is possible, right? You need to be having an extremely high level of supplier relation management. And you want to establish the accountability. So you need a very strong evaluation mechanism coming up. Each of these functions are very, very vital for the procurement functions. And all these needs to be transparent. You need to have the visibility of all of these functions at any given point of time, whether you're onboarding your supply, you're negotiating, you're looking at contract management, what steps you're taking on supplier relation management. You want visibility of everything. All of this, your data needs to be fully secure. You want to ensure that everything what you do is a very secure environment. And the most important element is you need competent human resources. Nothing will happen unless you have the right kind of resources. And I haven't come across any known management institute which teaches procurement management, right? It's all coming out of the experience of people. So these are the factors, how it is typically being managed in the traditional procurement. This is huge time spent on the transactional activities. I typically see people spending I think in the morning there was one interesting session which is where somebody asked that what is the productive time you spend out of the total day which you spend, and it came out to be 5%, right? There is a constant, all points have human interventions. So you're required to intervene, although you might be using emails and mobile, but there's constant intervention onto every single data point, every single action points. The judgments are based on many times because of the time constraint and lack of data, lack of information, on perception and gut feel. The decisions are based on perception and gut feel. There are a large pool of resources where the data is required to be collected. Across the organization, across your ecosystem, you're required to collect the data points in order to take the most appropriate decision for the context for which you wish to take the decision. Or most of the analytics, you might have a BI tool, but many of the analytics, a typical example, you even if you have to work out a total cost of ownership, you're driven by Excel. Most of the time, all analytics. So when you're driven by Excel, the question arises that what's the purity of the data? Because it's the human who is entering the data. What's the kind of effort which is going on? And if the purity of the data is you're not sure of, what's the kind of analytics which is going to come up? Huge amount of document management because that's required for your compliance, for your audit. So it's a huge effort which is needed to do this. Multiple storage point of data. So you have your emails, you have your ERP data, you have your analytics data, you have your market information point data. All these are segregated data points. And extensive coordination with different stakeholders internally as well as externally, your suppliers or logistics providers. Is huge amount of coordination. So what are the challenges typical which you face? This all things leads to maverick buying. It does not give you the spend visibility as you desire to have it on real time. The data purity, as I mentioned, is a questionable purity of the data. What happens when your critical buyer leaves the organization? All knowledge is sitting in his head, right? So you cannot mitigate that risk unless you have captured all the data, what he's done on any system. Very little time, of course, you spend as most of your time is being spent on the transactional activities. So you don't have much of time to think through the strategies. You need desired information on a click of a button. Then you are probably able to move faster. Audit, I think all that what you do, and the auditor walks in at the end of the year, end of the 6 months, and he asks you all funny questions which you scratch your head to answer, because that's something which you can't remember what you have done 6 months back. Why did you take that decision? So it leads to a very, very stressful environment. And again, unfortunately, most management don't recognize this is a very, very important function. Everybody thinks buying, it's very easy. It's a science by itself, right? You guys know that well. But most of the management have more focus on the sales, on the production, the purchasing department, which is kind of can really improve his profitability without much of an investment. There's never been a great focus. Things are changing now. There's a lack of clarity. There can be confusion because what have we communicated historically, there could be many confusion which could be existing. So what it results into? High cost and complete chaos. Is that the life which you have? It has impact on the profit. Yeah? So we'll look at various gaps in information, communication, your high cost of human resources, impact on negotiation. This impact can range from 2% to 22% of your spend. So if you're spending 1,000 crores or 500 crores, your spend at 500 crores could be as high as 10 to 100 crores more because of this inefficiency. So what's required? These are problems. So tell me, what is the solution? You'll require a very little time to be invested for your transactional activity. I need something which can practically not requiring much of time on my transactional activities, which is today I'm investing a huge amount. I need something where I have a contextual analytics which are flashed to me when I want it. I don't want to go to multiple systems to get those analytics. I don't want to fill in the data in the Excel file to get those analytics. And I want my compliance standard, so it's a CAT, which is what you require. You need your compliance standard to be observed by default. You don't have to put in any efforts, right? So that's where, welcome to the digital world, which is where it will connect you to the all points of information which you desire, all points of transaction which you desire. This is what from anywhere in the world through any of the devices. What it results into? Real-time visibility of everything what you are doing, or whatever is happening, not that you are doing, whatever is happening in the relevant ecosystem. It brings you dynamic, relevant analytics. See, I think we're dealing with a huge pool of data. You want a relevance. When you're dealing with a particular transaction, you're planning a negotiation, you want those relevant analytics for those categories, those items, those suppliers to come in, because that's where you're going to design your negotiation strategy. You want your SOP. You don't want to worry what I did or I didn't do it. The system needs to validate everything. So you follow the system, make you follow your SOPs. It creates a central repository of knowledge. So you're not kind of worried about what am I going to explain to my auditor. Simply have to hand over a system to the auditor. You go and look whatever you want to look. Everything is there. And that simplifies auditor's job, because what questions he's going to ask? He's asking you all the funny questions and you are struggling to answer, and then your KPI goes down and then you don't get the growth which you like, although you could have struggled all through your year. You want this access anywhere, because I think you guys also are traveling a lot and you want 24/7 by 365 access wherever you are. I want to take a decision, I want to see a decision, I want to see an information. Oh, all right, let me take out my mobile phone and see what's going on. Whatever information, like you want to find out commodity movements, you want to find out exchange rate movements, everything needs to come. Well, this is the digital world. Everything can come at a single point of your decision. Each of the areas which I have talked about is actual reality of the digital world. You want to have the supplier performance based on whatever he has done. No manual intervention. All data which is being captured, it will assess the supplier's quality performance, his delivery performance, in the manner in which you wish to have it. So that's what is the digital world can result into. So what happens now? What are the challenges? I think I have addressed all challenges, right? I've got all solutions which I was looking for. This is what the world exists right now. Digital world exists right now. It's not a dream. But I would like to dream for something else, to address the challenge that I'm pulling in huge amount of data and the interpretation of that data. There is an expertise which is required to interpret that data. I'm still dependent because of that on individual judgments for this. Still, many of the actions, although I have brought the information on the platter, the actions are driven by human, most of it. Demand prediction is still based on the data, on the human judgment. Behavior pattern, how your suppliers are behaving. You've got the data. You want to see that each of the supplier for each of the category, how is he behaving during the negotiation, historically done by you? What's an aggregate percentage of discount he is giving? What situation where you are able to fetch higher discount? Say you're dropping credit terms from 120 days to 30 days and you get 8% more discount for this one specific supplier because for him finance is a need. The other guy who has got larger production capacity, the moment you increase your volume of business, he drops prices significantly. You have to have that insight. What's happening? Well, many queries can come up and still you require human intervention to address those queries. And knowledge is available now, but interpretation is still going to be done by individuals. So there comes the future of the procurement. That's what we see it by 2025, 2028, 2030 at the max. This is going to be driven by machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, which will give you a high level of security of all your transactions, machine learning where you're building up capabilities in the machine to self-learn the next step. IoT, which has been talked in the conference significantly, and bots. You want intelligent bots to address to the queries of the suppliers or any of your partners. The most critical element of all of this is going to be AI. Artificial intelligence is going to rule the world. What is artificial intelligence? It's a simulation of human intelligence process by machines. The machines are, the algorithm is written to think like humans, experts. Say, for example, I'm giving here a negotiation behavior I talked about. Now you got your TCOs of, say, 5 suppliers available with you. How can a system intelligently analyze this 5 suppliers' bids and tell you, hey, you go to the supplier A and your target price today should be 90? On what base? Just giving a very simplistic example. You captured historical negotiation behavior of all of these 5 suppliers. You got current bids of all of these 5 suppliers. There is an average percentage negotiation which is already known by the system. It also picks up the variants that under which situation, which variant can work for which supplier to get the lowest possible price. If this data with the right algorithm is processed by the system can suggest, of course there are situational changes which will have to be accounted, but system can suggest, go to this supplier and target 90 rupees, and it will also give you a logic on what ground this 90 rupees the system is suggesting. And this is coming to a reality. The next, which all of you have experienced, is Siri, Alexa, Bixby, Cortana, is speech recognition, right? Is the system understand what you talk, right? And the third part is the visual part. Now, let's understand how our mind works. We visually get connected to something, we hear something, and our mind processes that data with the historical knowledge what we have, right? These 3 elements, when it works together, we come to a judgment, we come to a decision, or we have a path to move forward, right? That's how it works. That's what artificial intelligence is supposed to be doing. That's the next stage. That's the future. And it's happening all across, in all walks of life. And it's happening at a very, very high pace. So when we look at some of the example of AI, spend classification, I think each one of you would have this as a big challenge. Supporting sourcing, I did mention about the suggestive decisions. Supplier risk. I mean, a lot of things are happening all across the world. My supplier is located in Mexico, and there could be some issue, political issue in Mexico. So what's the risk element which I'm going to account? I will pick up those information. I will reflect those as a risk element. Big data benchmarking. You're collecting huge amount of data, but you want to benchmark data. You cannot process those data. You need something specific to what you're looking at, that information, that analysis. So these are the various usages of AI. And what Deloitte felt, that 88%, they carried out a global survey. In the next 5 years, this is going to impact procurement severely. So I think it's important that if this is going to be the future, your present, you need to make sure that you're ready for the future. Because you cannot move to the AI if your data purity is not in place. And if your data purity has to be in place, your digitization map has to be in place. Because otherwise you cannot be assured of the data purity. And then the AI cannot work. AI would give all wrong results. So how do I land up selecting my technology? It's too much of a confusion. Everybody talks about technology, right? I think every single person comes here and talks about technology. I have this offering, that offering. How do I land up selecting a partner? I'm confused. Align with somebody who understands your language. Very, very important. What you want to have. First, you need to have the clarity. What are you looking at? And somebody who can understand that well. You need to have first that level of confidence. Don't fall for perception. I think everybody, we are all smart to manipulate Excel file to give a huge ROI, right? And I said, we will do this, we'll do that, and this is what is going to be your ROI. Don't fall for perception. Reality check. How do you do the reality check? You can talk, visit customers, and 2, you can take the proof of the concept. Hey, let me use your product for some time. Let me see what you are saying is a reality or is it a dream which I am buying from you. Very important, you need to determine the sustainability of your partner because this technology map is evolving every day. The technology companies are every day one day old because tomorrow something new is going to come. So you need to see that the capabilities of these partners is there to evolve that technology map. Well, you're going to put this data on the cloud. So you're going to see that are these measures, security measures are sound enough. And out of all of this, the most important part, don't forget, you need to look at adaptability of a solution in context of your business, your processes. Because you know your business better than the outsider who's going to come and tell you, hey, I don't think this is the way to do business. You spend years in that domain. You understand that extremely well. So you create your digitization vision in order to implement it. Who can be that company who can come and implement this? Right? And the last message, please don't forget, technology is not a driver, it's an enabler. You are the driver. Keep this in mind because you understand what you need for your business. It's all business. Technology is only a support which is coming to efficiently run that process or run that business. That's what we do. Vendex is a fully mature product with a complete digital map end to end. We have some of the leading companies across different industries, cement, FMCG, chemicals, pharma, BPOs. So various companies which are using this product extensively. This is a completely modularized solution. So you can start your journey whenever you wish with a small step, and as you experience the product and the organizational services in all aspects, you can gradually build your digital map to the desired level. You first need to have that clarity that what do you need. Once you have that clarity, then the steps can be taken one after the other so that the change management which is needed in the organization also does not be a major change. It is just happening in a very seamless manner. These are some of the companies who are using either a complete landscape or partial landscape across the board, across the different industries. Thank you very much. In fact, if you have any questions, I would be happy to take that. Yeah.
Negotiation happened in the past, for vendor behavior to negotiation.
Right. Good question. When you start using the system on the day one, you don't have the behavior pattern available. As you build your transactional history on the platform, for the repetitive products which you buy, that is where you are capturing the vendor behavior. It's because the vendor's first quote and the last quote is his total negotiation percentage, right? So that is already captured by the system when you start using the system. Now it's a question of aggregating it on the weighted average. It is also on the question of looking at the volumes range, that because the larger volume can have a larger negotiation possibility, or the credit terms or a seasonal factor or a strategy. Some strategy could have worked. All of this is captured on the system.
So one after the negotiation will capture
No. This is dynamically created. When you float an RFP, when vendor gives the first quote, automatically TCO calculation happens on the system. When you negotiate through any mode, either you use the system or you pick up the phone or you're personally talking to a vendor, whatever price reduction comes, he is required to put in that data to whatever changes which are coming up. And that's how the vendor negotiation pattern gets built on the platform by default. And there's a dashboard. And these are all dynamic embedded analytics. So if you're buying steel of a certain grade, and if you're bought this material from, say, a couple of vendors, and maybe there are other couple of vendors whom you have not placed an order, but you had tried to negotiate and you have the price history available. Now at this point of time, when you are buying that specific steel grade, you have an icon which will come up. You will have your TCO spreadsheet, which is not your created spreadsheet, the system created page, which is looking like a spreadsheet, which is available with all the desired cost element, be it for domestic supplier or be it for international supplier, all of them incorporated there. And this icon, you just go simply and click on that icon. It will tell you that what is the negotiation behavior of each of the supplier under different situations. It will also give you a price trend of each of the supplier historically how it has been. You want to look at the spend of a particular supplier. There's another icon on that supplier. Simply go and click that icon, you have the spend available. You want to relate this to the commodity exchange, supposing if you want to track some commodity exchange. Put that data and put a linkage to the item. So you would know that how the commodity prices are moving vis-a-vis these prices are moving. You want to, on top of this, you want to have an audit mechanism. That my orders, I place 25,000 orders every year. I want to filter out that which orders were placed where I have given higher price than the previous price, or say I have not negotiated an average percentage of negotiation, or say I have not placed an order on the L1. So various permutation combination, almost 1024 permutation combination, it will filter out those decisions. I want to filter out decisions which are all above 1 crore. It will filter out decision according to these. I want to filter out decision for this plant, this category, this supplier, all permutation combination, which is what you want to add. The system would pull out that data. And on a click, you have the complete history of the negotiation, including the justification of the buyer. So I have mentioned about it, you don't have to worry about your auditor. Simply hand over the system. You can look at whatever you wish to. All right, sure. Last question.
I'm from an infra company whose business volume today is more than 10,000 crores. And the biggest challenge for supply chain, as a supply chain person for me, is the data management and the vendor management. Now, when we talk about data management, we have the item codifications, volume of the items what we are handling today, maybe in 30,000 or 40,000 items or more, I don't know, today. And it's a huge volume, and multiplied by number of vendors what we
Yeah, combination of that. Yeah.
Now, as we talk about as you told also that sanity of the data is most important for future data management and your data analytics and your future decisions.
Perfect.
So, in this context, how you manage or give a solution to vendor management and the data management today?
I think it's good that you asked this question, because it's nothing which is required to be managed. If you adopt a system, the system manages by default. You have a source list available of your each of the item, or you can add it dynamically as and when you wish to. That source list stays with those items. So whenever next time when you are buying that item, that source list is automatically picked up. You have structured RFP, which can comprise of technical parameters as well as the commercial parameters. Now, typically an EPC company would have every line item where the technical parameter can change. So there is a dynamic engine to create the technical bid, which is built in the system. So you can dynamically create different technical parameters required for getting the data from the supplier. Now the supplier requires some clarity. So there is a Vendex come and tell you, hey, this is not something, I can write algorithm, but that algorithm may not fit made spend analysis independent of the code. So you can attach category, you can have subcategories as per your desire. You can create groups on top of the category, you can add multiple category to that group. Now whatever way you want to see the spend analysis for whatever has happened on the system, or even if the external data which is available, you can upload on the system and carry out the spend analysis. So see, because normally what I have seen in a very large company, you start working on your coding structure. By the time you are over, which you believe that you are over, the next challenge starts coming in. So this is a lifelong process. Most organizations go through this, they are never satisfied. So I'm just trying to say that this is something where we felt that people are relatively more clear about how they want to see the spend. Take a last 2 years orders and first start with that as a step of categorization in the system. Maybe then you can keep on adding and evolving.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. And I request Mr. P.R. Rathod to please come up on the stage to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Shah. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.